you don't really want to drift or float
Yep.
or carry the
Yes.
plane on anymore above the ground when the ground is so close to you, because as the further down you go, once you completed the flare, you completed the decrep, there's no more room for error. The more you float, the more you go with the wind. So you
Yeah.
just want to be there.
So when it happened, Storm Eunice, it happened like 1 week ago in Heathrow. One of the videos, Malaysia Airlines flight landing there, it went viral because it says a smooth landing, a greasy landing, nicely done by the pilots. So actually, do you guys actually know them personally?
I know the captain. I think I flew. I think I was trained with him once in the simulator, but that's about it, I think.
I was trained with him once in the sim, and also I did the line training flight with him as well, I believe. Yeah, he was a nice, alright guy for both sessions.
I
I
agree.
did enjoy it as much as I can enjoy training anyway.
What about you guys?
He conducted one of my simulator sessions, the conversion for the first officers, 330. That was the old 330 then. Nowadays, we have in Malaysia Airlines, they have brand new 330s. The ones that I didn't get the chance to fly, but the captain who did the landing, in the viral video, he conducted one of my sim sessions. And as much as what our other friends say, he is a nice guy. What about you, Cap?
I only flew with him twice. Once, one time during my line training, and then I flew again. I flew again with him in the normal flight. As far as we are concerned about the flight that he did a good job landing the aircraft safely. That is what matters. So before we go further about this, let's go see the footage about the landing.
Oh, this is the Malaysian 350.
Oh, you know, the commentator is like just like in football, you know. He's very excited.
So many Malaysian netizens, they commented the same thing about this video. Most of them pointed out the great commentating skills by this guy. Oh man, that's good.
I think the guy enjoys enjoys his hobby very much.
Yep.
Yeah, but I believe that this guy plays darts. You know, that's how they announce the scoring. 180.
About the video just now, okay. This was the weather, the METAR during that time. What is it?
This is on the 18th, 12:50. What's the? Is it corrected with the summertime? Is it 12:50 a.m. or 12:50 p.m. or 1:50?
So Prof can enlighten us with this daylight saving time.
Yeah, sure. Which is called, I think, like British Standard Time or British Summer Time in the UK, BST. So basically, I think at this point it would still be regular time. So British, they follow the Greenwich Mean Time, and since Greenwich is in the UK, you don't need to adjust it for anything. So 12:50 should be 12:50 over there, and the clocks will spring forward at some point. I'm not sure what date it is, but they will tack on another hour between this month and next month.
The Malaysia Airlines landed, I think, around 3 o'clock, 1500, 1600 hours around that. So this one might be one of the moments that is one of the most intense moments, maybe.
What I read in the news, the captain has 30 years of flying experience, while the co-pilot has around 12 years of experience.
Great.
And we know that the flight from Kuala Lumpur to London, it takes around 12-13 hours, around that. So they need two sets of pilots. So happen to be they are operating as the first team, or the team A, we call it.
Yeah, first team.
Team A pilot. They will do the takeoff and landing. So they do the takeoff, halfway they change, 1 hour before landing they change back based on the landing just now. So actually, the landing was done by the captain, is it?
Naturally.
Yeah, must be.
Naturally,
Would be
okay.
done.
So as what I read in the news, the co-pilot was telling the story. He said that the wind are like were like from right, from left, from front, from like it was from everywhere. So I'm surprised that they didn't trigger the wind shear alert warning.
Wind shear.
Should it come on actually?
I think there's a threshold for wind shear. Basically, the IRS. How do I explain the IRS? Basically, when the aeroplane system senses a change of wind that is very rapid within a very short distance. Like if going from here to there, from here, the wind coming from here, but then from there, the wind now coming from here. Very fast. Then the aeroplane will tell you that there is something. But that is only when the aeroplane is inside the wind shear. But before the aeroplane is in the wind shear, already there's the radar system can sense that if there is a change of wind, and that is predictive wind shear. So I think the reason that both the predictive wind shear and the reactive wind shear didn't sense any wind shear is because that there is a very drastic change of wind, but it is not within a very short distance. It's like maybe a little bit further apart that the wind changes.
Yeah, I can
But
agree with
but
that.
like we see now, it was like 36 knots, gusting 51 knots. I mean,
That is strong wind, but it's not shearing wind.
okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe I would like to point out a thing or two about META and the 80s weather. For international airports, for major airports, they would have the weathers updated every 30 minutes. On average, normal airports 1 hour, but for these major airports, probably 30 minutes. If there is a significant change within these 30 minutes, they would go as far as updating the weather well before the 30 minutes threshold. So this is the corrected 80s, or something that is symboled with CORR probably, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
So
so.
this is thanks. So from what we see down the banner that we the thing that we refer to, this is called META. Okay, from the figures that we were given at time 12:50 Zulu or 12:50 UTC, roughly about a couple of hours before the Malaysia Airlines A350 landed in London Heathrow, the weather was about the wind speed was about 36, gusting to 51 knots. But does it mean that all the aircraft landed with that kind of wind? I'm sure that you guys can agree that it's not the case all the time. Sometimes, at times, some aircraft landed with 51 knots of, gusty winds, and sometimes much less than 36, even though it's indicated that the wind velocity or wind speed is starts from 36 and it increases up to 51. But in reality, the weather can vary a bit more or a bit less than what was indicated over there. Probably not too significant. So some unlucky aircraft who could come number 1 or number 2 sequence before you or after you would probably have encountered a much stronger wind than you did. So, our experience of flying into Europe, London, we have experienced being sometimes the lucky ones and sometimes being the more ill-fated or unlucky ones who had to land with stronger winds than others. So what happened here, because why I point this out is that some people would say or would compare this great landing of our Malaysian captains with the other international airline who seem to be struggling, to flare right at the final approach of their final approach before they land. It seemed like they couldn't control the aircraft at the final moment. This is partly due to the changes of weather. You can get to land with 30 knots of probably crosswind, and the aircraft behind you who land probably less than 1 minute after you could land with 20 knots more wind, stronger wind. So this is the variety of winds that we see. Thank God for the social media, we get to see our capable pilots landed the aircraft smoothly.
So you're saying that not only Malaysia Airlines went viral, but other airlines also who landed.
Yeah, sure. There's one video by a I'm not sure. Was he Qatari? Probably Qatar.
Oh yeah. There was one in the flight deck where he was flying
Yeah.
in the 777, the captain, and he was just fighting the controls through and through all the
Yes.
way to the end.
Oh yeah.
I think I can just summarize a little bit what Yas was saying. Is basically when the conditions in the 80s are specified as A, no two aeroplanes will land within the parameters of that condition. Aeroplane 1 will probably be landing at condition A minus a couple of knots, minus a few degrees of wind, and aeroplane B will land plus another few knots, plus another wind. And aeroplane C might land within whatever the 80s is stating. So you might get lucky and have wind that is favorable to you, or you might not. It really depends on your luck on the day.
Agreed. So, and could anyone guess what was the wind velocity like in that particular video?
It's a bit less.
Yeah.
No offense, but I would say it's a bit less. But it might be still gusty, but it should be way less than.
But the crosswind was not that
gusty.
The crosswind was not that strong, right? The crosswind.
And it is not strong for everybody, I would say. Because it's runway to
like
7.
25 to 30 degrees from the left.
Yeah, 30 degrees offset. And if, just to explain to the viewers, the component of the crosswind, if you learn physics, is basically you take the theta of the angle between the runway and the wind. In this case, it's 240 degrees. And we are landing at runway 27, which is 270 degrees. So it's about 30 degrees. And the sinus of the component is going to be like your head or your tailwind. And then the cosinus will be like the crosswind component. So that's not really a lot of crosswind. But having said that, gusting to 51 knots is a drastic change. When winds gust, what you want to do when you land an aeroplane is you want to reach like just before you commence the flare, when you land at this part, you want to carry a certain amount of energy which translates to a certain speed. So you want to have this speed right where here. So that when you have this kind of speed, this kind of energy, when you convert it into this, you will touch down where you want to land. So to have this particular speed, you need to carry a certain speed all the way to the end. But with the wind gusting like this, the engines are going to struggle. Now, when the wind picks up, now the engine dies down because you don't want to carry too much speed. And then the wind suddenly dies down. So now the engines have to pick up the slack that the wind has just lost. So depending on your aeroplane's engine capability, so depending on the engine and then the software that programs the engine, like for this aeroplane, it has something called ground speed mini, which tries to anticipate the change of the winds over the distance based on, some kind of magic calculation. I'm not going to go too deep into that. But basically, this ground speed mini will try to compensate for any change or abrupt change of winds in favor of the aeroplane. Does it work? And I think the aeroplane that the guys were flying in also has the same capabilities of this aeroplane that I'm talking about.
True. And it is worth pointing out that this is the unique characteristic of Airbus. 320, 330, 350, 380. All of them have this ground speed mini function, which is uniquely Airbus, I guess. I don't think it's available in any other manufacturers.
I don't think so.
Boeing, I don't remember, but you just add on any speed, right? Like if you feel that you need more energy to fight off against wind decay or anything, you just add a few more knots to your approach speed. Right?
Sure, it's a much simpler term. We call it wind additives. We add up
wind additive. Okay.
Wind additive.
Forget already.
What we saw just now, the landing was firm, right? It wasn't like no
Yeah.
floating, like no like
You
trying
you
to
you,
get a.
you don't really want to drift or float
Yeah.
or carry the
Yes.
plane on anymore above the ground when the ground is so close to you, because as the further down you go, once you completed the flare, you completed the decrep, there's no more room for error. The more you float, the more you go with the wind. So you
Yeah.
just want to be there right
Indeed. Yes.
immediately after you finish the maneuver. So basically, it is when let me just orient myself to the camera here. So just before you get down to the runway, you don't want to be descending anymore. Otherwise, you will clap down hard. You kind of want to pull up a little bit so that it goes forward, and you just reduce the descent rate to something like maybe 100 or 150 feet per minute, so that you settle down nicely onto the runway. So this particular maneuver is a flare. And another thing is, when you fly with crosswind, to make the aeroplane go straight against the wind, you actually have to fly sideways. But then you don't want to be landing on the runway sideways, because when the wheels touch the runway sideways, they're going to grip down and pull the aeroplane over there. So just before you touch, you correct straight, and now you touch, then you can move straight down the runway. So that's this particular maneuver is the flare, and this particular maneuver is the decrab. Because when you were flying in, you're flying in like this. This is called a crab. So you decrab, you flare, and you land. That's it.
Just imagine the crab.
Mm.
Hence the name.
Yeah. Lah. As we say, Malay crab teach children walk sideways.
Yeah. Would any of the crabs have any idea that they are heavily involved in aviation terms, in terms of landing under such weather conditions?
I think I can add one more element of flight to color this landing maneuver. Airbus has fly-by-wire, and they have this flight control law. I think we already explained in previous episode, in which you just point the aeroplane in one direction, and then no matter what the winds do or whatever, the plane will compensate for all that and try to fly as much as it can in the direction that you pointed it. However, this only works in like calm winds, or maybe just minor variation in air density or everything. But in very strong winds, you still have to fight the wind. So even though the plane is, let me just rephrase it and say that the plane is doing 30% of the work maybe, but the 70% you still have to do lah in strong winds.
And one thing to add, that if people are wondering and asking, why don't they just use auto land during that condition? We have to tell them that actually that for doing an auto land, there's a limitation of the wind. So you cannot just, if you want to do auto land, it's not in all conditions. You have to be in the wind must be in the within limits. So in that situation, gusting like 31 to 36 to 51.
None of us today has the A350 rating, so we can't really speak on behalf of the 350 pilots. But based on our experience, we have flown probably two types of the Airbus fleet, 330 and 380, isn't it? And one of us is currently flying the 380, and the other one is, I think, is still current in his 330 rating. And if the wind reports like the ones that we see, which is way too strong for the computers to land this aircraft automatically, so if it exceeds this limitation, then it's all up to the pilots to manually land, either manually to land the aircraft, or just cancel the approach and go somewhere else to land.
Somewhere that doesn't have strong winds.
I would like to bring us to another subtopic. Just now we were touching on the autoline limitations, any wind report that exceeds the autoline limitation, the autopilot cannot land this aircraft. We have to land manually. But what about the limitations of manual landing? Any of you guys want to explain about this?
There is a limitation also for manual landing. Also, some airlines also have restrictions for captains. The limitations are different for co-pilots, first officers. The limitations are different for landing, especially the crosswind. it only applies for the crosswind limitations. For the headwind, for manual landing, there's no limitation for headwinds. And then for tailwind,
It's 15 up to high airport elevation, and then it reduces to 10. I think the threshold is like 8,000. If the airport is higher than 8,000 feet, then it's 10 knots.
yeah, on dry runway. Depends on the runway condition as well. So, and in our case, like we said before, that the crosswind wasn't that much. It wasn't that strong, the crosswind. We can see the aircraft was just crabbing a little bit only.
It's still strong, but it's slightly perhaps slightly less strong than what is reported from the meta. That
No, the angle is not. I mean, it's not like 90 degrees.
We'll call it relative lah. Relative, like relatively speaking, in KL you won't be having any crab. So that makes like any kind of crab a strong for a pilot who doesn't really. For example, for Australia, suffers from a lot of strong winds in some places. So if you're from there, probably landing with that kind of crosswind in London is like
peanuts.
You know, peanuts, fried peanuts.
Yeah, piece of scone.
Do you think that it was the right choice to land, to make a landing compared to diverting somewhere?
That depends on every scenario, right? But for in this particular scenario, the 39 knots, 39 gusting 51 knots, like Kide say, let's take the 51 out of the equation, so 39 knots. I think if the aircraft limitation 39 knots, at that present moment, okay, that was the meta at that time, 39 knots. So if the actual is lesser than that, perhaps most aircraft can land. And the gustiness of the wind, will affect the controllability of the current aircraft. If, let's say, the London is at that time, I think aircraft is mostly doing straight-in approaches. Doing a straight-in approach means they have more time to to have the aircraft stable and have their parameters ready way ahead. Other than just doing twists and turns before making into the before attempting to land. And having said that, when the aircraft is let's say they are transitioning to a manual landing and suddenly the wind picks up, the gustiness just touches the aircraft a bit more, and hence making the aircraft more wobbly in a sense. So and then the pilots deem that the aircraft is cannot be back to the stable parameters at that nick of time. So they just decide to not do landing, just take another attempt, and with the back of the mind that the wind is okay. The wind is actually okay. Only they don't less reactive at that time. So okay, for the second landing they are more reactive, and so it happens that in the second landing the wind is less intense at that time. So you never know. The scenario may differ from
did they actually did they do a second attempt actually?
There are a few aircraft that did not land and make another attempt. I think it's like there's a Singapore. I think Singapore Airlines, 20 minutes. They fly up and then 20 minutes. Maybe they held somewhere, or maybe they were redivected for another long straight-in approach.
The storm Eunice is very severe, and it only happens like after a few decades, and it's like a big deal happening in the UK. It's a scary thing, and then based on that, isn't it like too dangerous or too risky to try to make an attempt to land? Somebody not in the aviation world, they might think that this kind of weather is very odd and it doesn't happen. It's not normal.
Before Amir comes in, I just want to say this kind of weather is very odd, and this storm happens once in every 2 decades. It's not the kind of information that a pilot would base his decisions on. Take it away, Amir.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I was about to say the same thing.
We have learned some general info at least from our meteorological lessons, and I think for for the it's not really to be it's not really unusual to say that the windstorms are unusual that rare, because I think during my 380 days I also experienced I don't remember what is the name of the storm. And apparently the windstorms, the strong winds there, it's a seasonal, in fact. So maybe the severity of the windstorm that the Eunice gives is the Eunice gave was more severe than normal, I believe. At the latitude of where London is, as pilots, we should already expect or should already have back in mind what kind of a typical weather that they have at that time of the year. We have prepared the contingency beforehand, before we even depart. Maybe they already have an extra fuel and everything, and also they have reconsidered diversion. But I don't think it wasn't really that you can't see the runway. It's a good day. It's just windy. It's just a very windy day. Otherwise, it's a clear day. One of the factors that we have to take action is just to get ready and just fly through the wind.
Biggest determinant is the QNH. If you could see the QNH value for when the storm was going on, it was like relative to the rest of the TEF, it was 10013, 1014. When all that stuff was happening, it was 980 something. So that low pressure would invite all sort of nasty stuff down to the airport.
To the public out there, you think that Storm Eunice is something like dangerous, it's a big disaster, but still it doesn't. It is still safe to land in this storm and condition. That's
I wouldn't say that it is safe to land under the Storm Eunice condition, but I would probably expand it further and say that when we hear such news of such storm, such so-called disasters happening, by the way, I wouldn't say that Storm Eunice is not dangerous. It caused the roof of the O2 Stadium in London to be blown off. So it caused fatalities as well. So it's not something that is something that is trivial or something that we need to look easy upon. It is something serious. So when pilots are presented, pilots around Europe especially, when they are presented with such meteorological reports, news reports about the fatalities, damages caused to the infrastructures, public roads, cars and whatnot, the natural way for the pilot to pursue further regarding this matter is to look at our statistic and data, our presented briefing packages. They present with the terminal aerodrome forecast, the forecast which is good for about valid up till 30 hours maximum. And we have also the constantly updated weather from Meta. And like I said, if it's too significant a change to that Meta, it will be updated even less than the scheduled change time. So this is what is more specific to us pilot. Even if the Storm Eunice, they happen in London, we would like to know what happens directly overhead the airport, the London Heathrow Airport. And if we find the wind velocity, wind speed to be bearable within limitations, then we go for it. We don't go around or cancel the approach, cancel going to London after flying for 11 hours, have 1 hour to go and passing 10,000. We decide that, it's too bad. We should be going off to some other countries. As what happened to other airlines whose unfortunately their scheduled time of arrival, their time of landing coincides with the peak of the storm. So that causes them to cancel their approach and diverted to not even in the same country. They diverted to Belgium. Some of them diverted to probably Netherlands. I can't recall. But this is what the storm can do when it reaches its peak. So what happened to our national carrier is probably they saw the meta and say that even though the autoline is not capable of doing landing automatically, but the manual landing could. So, being an experienced captain and also with his experienced co-pilot, mashallah, tabarakallah, they continued even below 10,000. And from what we learn in the aviation industry, they have, with the advancement of the industry, before this, you guys remember what was the latest time where we decide to go around? It was the minimum, wasn't it?
Mhm.
The minimum.
Yeah.
When we reached the minimum, the stipulated the written figures in the chart of that particular approach, as what Ami has mentioned, the straight in ILS approach, it would say that say it's 300 feet, the minimum, the figure. So when we reach the threshold of 300 and we find that the wind is way beyond our limitation, we go around. So but nowadays we understand that even if the wind dwindles down to a more tolerable figures, at minimum we continue the approach. So well below 300, we still continue the approach. But once we flare, suddenly the wind is more gusty and unbearable, we still can afford to cancel the landing nowadays. So with this in mind, we can always have comfort in our mind that at any part of our approach, even to the final stages of our flare, we can still cancel the landing if it is deemed that it is unsafe to land. So this is what good pilots did, and we have to compliment the pilots for doing perfect jobs, and not only to the Malaysia Airline pilot, all of the other airlines, I can safely say that they did a very good job.
Yeah, we all can agree with that.
Yeah, that is what I wanted to hear, and also I'm guessing all the audience also wants to hear.
Yeah,
That we
probably the
can that we
purpose
can
of us doing this review and reaction is probably just to provide further information for the people who are scared when they see the public news.
Yes.
The media is about everything. They report everything, and probably this is one of our initiative to further bring awareness that a pilot knows his job.
So it takes a lot of factors to make a flight successful.
I
True.
agree. As we can see, these are our comments and review about what happened in Heathrow regarding the storm Eunice. We want to praise our Malaysian fellow friends who did a good job. Besides that, I think that's about it. Our comments for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Jom take off. We hope that it is beneficial to you guys who are watching our segment. Remember, before they landed in Heathrow, what did they do first from Kuala Lumpur? Let's take off.